Black Ops 2 is my favorite game in the Call of Duty series, but the zombies had some big issues that honestly, looking back now, we narrowly avoided complete disaster. There truly is a world where Black Ops 3 never happened, or if it did, it got trimmed down and would have been like Vanguard is these days. For some much needed context, when Black Ops 1 ended with blowing up the moon, that's really where the main Ether storyline was supposed to end. I don't know if it was ever officially confirmed, but it seems fairly clear that Richthofen had won by taking control of the Ether and becoming unstoppable. The rest of our crew was stuck on the moon, Maxis got yeeted out of existence, and Samantha is now stuck in Richthofen's old body, and it just seems like an ending to me. But at some point in the development of Black Ops 2, it was decided to use a new crew but tie in the old story and make it a spiritual continuation. That's already kind of a weak reason to keep it going, but maybe Treyarch realized that fans wouldn't be too receptive of a completely new storyline just yet. Whatever the case though, they went ahead with it, and now we're going into this whole fractured world gimmick. A map needs to be designed around it. By the way, if you could like the video, that'd be appreciated, and subscribing as well. We just reached 145,000, and hitting 150k by the end of the next month would be great, thanks. But this is where Tranzit enters the picture, and it was originally designed to be so much more than what actually released. It was meant to have lots more modes, no annoying fog, a second bus route, the most beautiful skybox we've ever had in zombies, and a lot more stuff that we'll probably never know about. The problem was that all of this was meant to fit onto a massive map in Black Ops 2 on the Xbox 360 and PS3. The phone that you're probably watching this on is more powerful than both of those consoles were back then, and as time went along and launch came closer, Treyarch realized they couldn't make the map run at 60 FPS on the PS3 no matter what they did. So parts of what they had created or were planning on creating were slowly stripped away, the fog got added to hide low quality textures, and eventually Tranzit was born. On launch, it did get a fairly warm reception at first just for its sheer size and ambition, but as the weeks went along, people began to gravitate more towards staying exclusively inside of the bus when playing Transit to avoid a lot of the areas or the fog, or they were starting to play the smaller survival maps, which were just much easier to get set up on and play your zombies match. Even the main storyline quests, which were still sort of new at the time, was kind of weird in Transit, with you needing to pick either a Maxis side or a Richthofen side, and also how the hell did Maxis come back? He literally died. You also never actually see either of them, they just talk to the players, and the quest itself was kind of underwhelming gameplay wise. It wasn't a great start to the year really, especially with all the time and resources being dumped into zombies just for it to turn out as a shell of what it was meant to be. Then a few months later, Dairaz strolled in, which once again the feedback initially was somewhat positive, with lots of players enjoying the new gimmick of all the verticality, but after a little while the more annoying parts of the map took over. The casual Call of Duty player, especially in early 2013, was not going to have an easy time being careful near ledges or be good at avoiding being crushed by the elevators. Falling off the map became insanely common, and while there was a lot of fun to be had trolling around with your friends, it wasn't really what most people would consider an iconic map. Once again, the main quest had two different sides, which were so easy that the world record speedrun is now 5 minutes from start to finish. For most people though, especially back then, figuring out a bunch of symbols, coordinating elevators to have everyone on them at once, and playing Mahjong wasn't anywhere near the thrilling gameplay of filling up the MPD on Moon in zero gravity. And just like Transit, there was two sides which gave slightly different endings that pretty much only really affected the dialogue that you were going to be hearing. So as a recap, both of your first maps in Black Ops 2 have flopped and kind of hard. This was the first time zombies had really stumbled and was beginning to cast some doubt on what was going to happen going forward. Making things worse, Jimmy Zielinski, who had been the creative director of zombies since the role was created around the time of Darius coming out, had actually left Treyarch. He was the head guy, and all of a sudden he's just gone, and it's still not entirely clear what happened all these years later, whether he was fired or he quit, but all of a sudden he's just gone in the middle of the DLC season. With all of these things happening at once, it's all starting to look really bleak for zombies, and something that we need to keep in mind especially is that Activision is a ruthless business at its core. Especially back in 2013, before they merged with Blizzard and acquired King, all of the metaphorical eggs were in the Call of Duty basket for them. If something was costing money and wasn't getting the returns they needed, it was going to be gone. Then suddenly, at the moment that it was needed most, on April 16, 2013, Zombies was saved. Mob of the Dead is the first map under new creative director Jason Blundell, and it was everything Zombies had never been up until that point. From the seconds that we stepped into Nocturne and Toten in 2008, Zombies had always been a horde-based survival mode with some story elements mixed in. Slowly that story did seep into the way the maps were being designed, but at its core you were just meant to survive first and everything else was secondary. That whole narrative was flipped on its its head with Mob of the Dead, it was story, atmosphere, and realism above all else. You can tell this right away because the moment that you spawn in, you're a ghost needing to revive yourself, and we're a new cast of characters that no one has ever heard of. Finn, Arlington, Billy, and Salvatore all felt like bad people who did bad things and deserved to be in this prison. Our reason for being here in this moment was to escape the inescapable island with our lives. Everything we do to progress throughout this map is to help in that goal. Building a plane with scrap found around the island, fighting off the prison warden just time and time again, and surviving at all costs. These were all things zombies had never really attempted before. There had never been a map that took the story and made it the complete focus of everything that was going on. Mob of the Dead also took itself very seriously. The map itself is a direct replica in many locations of the actual prison, and our characters were voiced by celebrities who took it seriously. And it was so jarring because up to this point we were used to Richtofen shouting about spleens, and that's all good and I really enjoy that, but there's something really satisfying when the tones of the acting matches the seriousness of what's being told. As I said, these are 4 desperate men trying to escape an island full of zombies and a cycle they can't seem to break, and it's just so appreciated that all of the dialogue reflects that. Even in the intro cinematic, the plan being put into action took months of them planning and only really begins when Arlington stabs an innocent guard who just spoke about his wife and kids. It tells us everything that we need to know about these guys, sets the scene for the map, and was a nice bump in production value from the previous maps having cartoon cinematics. All of this was a direct attempt to tell you that Mob of the Dead was here, zombies was here, and you should be paying attention from now on. There's also a strange hopelessness that comes with Mob of the Dead storytelling where through audio we know that whatever we're experiencing here just keeps happening. When we finally gather all the parts to leave the prison on a plane that's meant to finalize our freedom, the plane crashes into the Golden Gate Bridge, and the only way to escape there is to continue our suffering. Step into the electric chair and re-enter our bodies for the millionth time back where we started on Alcatraz. Even the Easter egg main quests are something we had never seen before. All roads lead to the Golden Gate Bridge where either Arlington kills the other 3 crew members and they are allowed to finally just be dead, or they all betray Arlington and the cycle continues infinitely. You need to kill each other. This doesn't just play out during a cutscene where you have no control, you actually have to do it, and there are 2 different endings here. That had never been attempted in zombies before, where everything is the same just up until the last second. Usually you divert very early on. And neither of these endings are happy. Breaking the cycle means death, and continuing it means more suffering. As the map states itself, no one escapes alive. All of Mob of the Dead was created in service of this incredible story being told. Very little of the map felt useless during the main quest and regular gameplay. Even the tight hallways going through the cell blocks, they were very frustrating at times because there's no room to slip by a zombie safely, but that's just how wide they were in real life. Mob of the Dead wasn't going to cut you a break for this and risk breaking your belief that this was a real prison. Now, like I said, did this sometimes lead to frustrating situations and high round gameplay not being that fun because there are no traditional large areas to horde around zombies? Absolutely. Even the cafeteria is a lot tighter than we were used to, and that's your best option. But does Mob of the Dead absolutely make up for it in every other area? Also absolutely. If that's me saying the map's biggest flaw is that I have nowhere to train around that's super large like Ascension, then we've got an all-time banger on our hands. Following Mob of the Dead's insane levels of universal praise, it was clear that Zombies was setting off in a new direction, one focused on characters, world building, and story. In order to tie up loose ends, Buried came out next to tie up Jimmy Zielinski's story that began the year, and once that was done, and with the release of Origins especially, it was clear that Jason Blundell was in charge and Zombies was in the beginning stages of its second golden era. Without Mob of the Dead, and really without the failures of Die Rise and Transit, we may have never experienced some of the best maps ever made. Origin, Shadows of Evil, Drazendrock, Zombies Chronicles, 9, or Ancient Evil. So I really do think Mob of the Dead saved Zombies. Now go watch the video coming up on the screen right now. YouTube thinks you'll like it and so do I. Thank you very much for watching. Love you, bye.